Hi, Dr. Ryder and group mates. So this is going to be my campus analysis response for comprehensive colleges and universities, as well as research universities. So out of all three of our presentations, we talked about Duke University, Coastal Carolina, and Appalachian State. And on this slide, I've kind of included just key facts about each university. Coastal Carolina and App State are both comprehensive universities, while Duke University is a private research institution. And two of these schools are located in North Carolina, while one is in South Carolina, but they all are in very different locations and regions. And the oldest and youngest founding dates were 55 years apart, and they all have a substantial amount of students, with a difference of 6,017 between the most amount of students and the least amount of students. And I'm first going to talk about some similarities and differences I noted between the physical environments of each university. And for starters, 2 out of 3 of these schools are located in a more urban area, while App State is lone on a mountain. And another aspect we all kind of mentioned is how the landscapes and campuses were overall beautiful and appealing to the eye. And this is a really important aspect that the physical readings that we had to do, or my group at least had to do, talked about, because the environment leaves a lasting impression on students, faculty, staff, everyone that enters that campus. Obviously, they're going to look around and see where they're at, and it's going to have an impression on them. Excuse me. As James mentioned, a lot of students were drawn to Coastal Carolina just because of it being near the beach. And for students like myself, I would never attend App State because it's in the mountains, and I'm definitely not a mountain person. So that kind of shows how location definitely makes a difference and impacts students, whether they attend a university or not. Along with the landscape, we each noted how each campus was visitor-friendly, whether that was from friendly faculty and staff that we saw, welcoming, just a welcoming environment in general, or dedication to pedestrian safety and making sure that pedestrians had a way of navigating the campus. And we also noted kind of the ease of navigating campus. For all of our campuses, learning buildings were centralized. Obviously, that makes sense since the whole purpose of a campus is to learn, so that kind of makes sense to me. And being localized in the center is beneficial for students because they don't have to travel far to get to wherever they need to go to their classes. And for differences, I noted that the spread out nature versus compactness of a campus was not the same. Kevin mentioned that Duke was a really vast, spread out campus, while James navigated Coastal Carolina in only 20 minutes. So that kind of shows how different that was. And for my presentation, I would say the App State is kind of in the middle, just because it is kind of dispersed, but not really because it's still bundled together. So I would say that we kind of covered the spectrum of very, very spread out, kind of spread out but not really, and then compacted together. Lastly, there were significant differences in both the architecture and the regions that we noted. We basically covered all the regions as it ranged from the coastal, Piedmont, and mountain areas. So we kind of covered that as well. And then architecture also has a really big impact on students, just because it can either reflect the history of the campus and give the buildings a more picturesque, beautiful atmosphere for students to see. Excuse me. So next up is going to be the aggregate environments. And one thing that I noticed about Duke and Coastal Carolina that they have in common is the diversity of the student population. I mentioned in my presentation how App is not diverse and how a large amount of the students identify as being white, while all other ethnicities were significantly lower and underrepresented. And this is important to note just because diversity, or the lack thereof, definitely has an impact on the campus culture, and the types of students that may or may not be attracted to that campus. So the diversity and lack thereof definitely plays a role, just because students want to feel like they are represented on their campuses and have people that they can relate to. Especially with faculty and staff, you want to see people that reflect your culture and your ethnicity. So it's definitely something that campuses need to keep in mind. We all also noted how sports play a really big role on each of these campuses, whether it's from the Cameron Crazies, famous athletic alumni, or jam-packed stadiums. Sports clearly have an impact on these campuses, and students are really proud to support their teams. For the differences, I noticed how the schools are in the media, how they're portrayed are very different. While I was Googling, I found that App State was a majority of the articles were dealing with sports and what was happening with their teams, while James noted that his research found a lot of violence. And I also remember hearing about several cases of violence and crimes at Duke University as well. So you get the negative and the positive. Each school's going to have both, but we just kind of mentioned those. And these type of news articles definitely can hurt a university, especially for prospective students and their parents. They can be very reluctant to attend those universities if it's portrayed that the university kind of has a nature for being a place where crime and violence happens. I definitely wouldn't want to go to a school like that, so I know other students are definitely looking at that as well. Third up is going to be the organizational environments, and from what I got from your presentations, these schools all really market themselves very differently. With Duke, it seemed like being an esteemed private university where only the elite select number of students get accepted is how they want to be known, which nothing's wrong with that because clearly they're doing something right where they have about 36,000 students applying and only less than 20,000 get accepted, so they're doing something right to get that amount of students, and it's an insane difference. For Coastal Carolina, it seems like being near the beach with plenty of resort-style amenities, as Jane mentioned over and over, is a really big draw for students. And you can't blame them being at the beach, having a pool. It's nice to be able to relax after classes, so you definitely can't blame them. And then lastly, for App, the location, from what I noted, was a really important factor, that they are, they have the highest elevation east of the Mississippi, and it's just a really beautiful location to be in. I also noted that these universities want their students to learn and grow, and from their mission statements, it just seemed like they really want their students to learn as much as they can while they're at college and then give back to their communities, whether that's creating sustainable environments or becoming leaders in the community. It's something to do with giving back. And it also seemed like students are given a voice on their campuses, but universities tend to have the top-down leadership where ultimately the people in charge make the calls, which makes sense as long as they're still adhering and listening to their students, because there wouldn't be a school without the students. Last but not least, one of the most important environments, in my opinion, is going to be the socially constructed environments. And I say most important just because you can get a real sense of the university through reviews and the overall campus culture. The website of the university itself isn't going to announce that they're a party school or what the negative aspects that they're known for. So you kind of have to dig deep and be secretive about it, go on campus and ask students and just find the real dirt just to know what that campus is like. And ultimately, one of the biggest similarities I found for these schools was the amount of school spirit each school had, and the amount of students that partake in those, which is a really great environment to have because you want students to be excited to support their fellow peers and to support their school. So to me, it means that the students are enjoying their environment, because I feel like if they didn't want to support their school and have that school spirit, that they probably wouldn't like the university that they're at. So showing that school spirit definitely shows that the university is doing something right. And for 2 out of these 3 campuses, I imagine that the community support is well received. For App and Duke especially, it seems like the community really supports the university and attends events and supports the students in the university as a whole. Excuse me. But as Jane was saying, for Coastal Carolina, I would imagine that having the party school reputation it has, and then the amount of violence in the news that is reported, I imagine it would put a damper on the community support that they receive. But overall, you can't control that, and it's a shame. But that's all I have for you guys. I hope you enjoyed my video. I enjoyed both of yours. And hopefully you learned something. I learned a little bit about each of the universities that you talked about. Have a great night, y'all.